Service charges, lettings and independent living.
Hello and welcome to an update on our resident engagement webinar. So you asked us lots of questions and we got to some of them on the call, but we didn't get to all of them. We had some that we didn't get to that you'd pre-submitted and some additional that you popped in the chat. So we have pinned Daryl and Catherine down once again, and we're going to answer those follow-up questions. So I'm going to come to the first one. So, Catherine, residents have asked around how they can clearly see what their service charges are funding, and how is Sanctuary ensuring that service charges like cleaning, repairs and estate safety are consistently delivered?
Thanks. It's really good question. We try really hard each year to have actual service charges. We have a specification for our grounds maintenance, and that should be clearly displayed. So we'd really love to hear any feedback if you're not seeing that, because that's really important that you have that transparency out on the estates and in schemes. And we make sure that all the bills that come through are accounted for, and then the charges are passed on to you. That's what we're driving for actual cost. I think it's really interesting what we've seen over the last 5 years, though, is we've seen a lot more bulky waste removal on our estates, which is driving up costs of service charges for estates. So again, I'd urge people to come forward and let us know. If you're struggling and you can't get those items removed, please speak to us and we can talk to local authorities, make sure you've got numbers, etc. for bulky waste removal. We're looking on average now of around £60 to have a mattress tipped. That's the tipping cost. And then we've got the caretaking costs on top of that, and fuel for the vans, etc. And all those costs have got to be paid for. And ultimately, that's what's driving up costs. That's what we've seen a lot of. So, that's where we are. Happy to take individual points and make sure that those are fed back to you if you have them. So yeah, thanks.
I think Catherine's made a really good point about bulky waste, but I think in addition there are a number of things that are done around the estates that then are passed on to you. There are also costs that we try and manage for you. So energy bills, as an example, we've seen across the country energy bills really going up. Sanctuary have done a really good job at forward buying energy to try and protect customers from those price increases. So where we can, we try and help in any way. And we absolutely only pass actual costs on. So there's never any uplift in that cost from a Sanctuary perspective. So if we do need to do a bulky waste removal, we just pass the exact cost on to customers. So again, look at those schedules that you've got. If there are any questions about individual schemes, happy to answer them. Daryl's team do record what they do on those schemes when they come out, and we do we try and do the best we can. If we do miss, I don't know, a cleaning episode because maybe a cleaner's unwell and we unable to replace them, that cost would not be passed on to you as a customer, and we'd make sure that's all trued up at the end of the year. So hopefully that answers service charges for you. Daryl, I'm going to come to you with the next one. So what does Sanctuary do to prepare a property before a new customer moves into it?
Thank you for the question. We deliver about 500 empty homes back to our housing colleagues every month. So we're saying goodbye to 6,000 plus customers every year. And for every home that we've got empty, it's a customer that hasn't got a home, and we want to turn that around as quickly as we can. So we try where we can to get in to look at the requirements to make sure that the scope of what we need to do to turn the property around is completed whilst we've got the existing customer in the property, because that will speed our process up. Our first important element is to make sure that the property is safe and compliant. So we'll be looking at the gas, the electric, making sure that all of the right certificates are in place, looking at the energy performance certificate as well, and potentially identifying any further remedial works that we might want to deliver as part of a planned programme. Then on average, we look to turn the void around to become an empty home that can be let within 14 to 21 days, depending on the scope of the work that is required. So we have got a lettable standard which has been agreed with the scrutiny panel of the works that we need to ensure that are in place before we hand the property back. So that will be around the cleanliness, that will be looking around the safety of the kitchens, the bathrooms, making sure there's no trip hazards, making sure all of the windows are able to be opened, able to be closed as well, so that drafts are removed as possible. And then with that, we would then hand that back to our lettings team to be able to move that on. Ideally, we don't want customers to leave, but we recognise customers will want to leave for various reasons around what's going on in their home lives. But for us, it's about to be able to turn that property back round to become lettable as quickly as we can.
And we do have a team, don't we, in your team, Catherine, that check up on the work Daryl's team have done and make sure that you're happy with that, to let that to a customer. So I think there's a number of checks that go on. Would we like to do more? Yeah, we'd love to decorate and do more to every empty home, but unfortunately that's a complicated financial equation. We're always looking to trial new things, and in some cases we do have some support from our supply chain, and they'll give us some packages that might help us put more things into that home to help that customer be successful. We also have wellbeing packages. So Catherine, I know the team, if a customer maybe doesn't have something to move in, we'll do what we can to look at funding to support that. So whether that be a fridge freezer or whether that be some equipment that maybe is missing, we do our best to support that too. So great question again, thank you, and hopefully that's helped answer it. I'm going to let you tag team this one and choose how you want to do this one. So question here is around what difference does it make in real terms to repairs and other queries from residents in properties for older people as opposed to residents in other sanctuary housing properties? So I guess looking for whether there's a difference in servicing for our general needs population to our older persons living. Perhaps there's two parts to this. And it says here that the residents are prompted to select the property type indicator via a button during the repair submission process. So when the older person's option is selected, that there's an assumption that we're going to do something different. So do you want to talk perhaps about how we differentiate between different customers, specifically for our older customers when it comes to a repair?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I start with when a customer wants to lodge a work requirement and they call the customer hub, what we liking people to do is to identify themselves as to what region they're in and whether they work in whether they live in independent living or whether they live in general needs, whether they're a leaseholder as well, so that we can direct that call to the dedicated team that we have got based in our customer hub, who understand what is required from the service level, rather than it just being going into that general call center and not being able to bespoke the service to how we want to capture the information, understand specific requirements that a customer may have, and so that we can log the job and then we can deliver that through the appropriate teams. Ideally, where possible, it's through one of our self-delivery teams. Sometimes it's through subcontractor, depending on the time scale, depending on the type of work that we're going to get them to deliver. There is no difference in the service level. So for our emergencies in England, it's 24 hours. And for non-emergencies, it is 30 working days. So it helps us profile where the work is. We would prioritize work based upon customer requirements. It could include vulnerabilities associated with a customer, and taking that into account is something that we do need to get regularly updated by customers, so that we can take in those up-to-date information pieces that would say customer may be vulnerable this week, may not be next week, because something may have changed in their home as well. So, but generally service levels don't change between the different customer types.
Yeah, do you want to give a little bit about our independent living setup from a housing perspective, and maybe tease a little bit about the pilot that's gone on in independent living and how that's helped improve services?
Yeah, and just before, just picking up on Daryl's point, so yes, we might not have differentiators, but what we do is we make sure we understand who is behind the door of each home. I think it's really important. So an example of that might be we'll be replacing fire doors in independent living schemes. We would make sure that those are eased properly so people can open them, because we recognise as you mature in life, you might not have the strength that you had in your 60s when you get to your 80s, etc. So we've done a lot of work around that. We've done a lot of work around vulnerabilities and understanding the customers. So there might be things that we do above and beyond based on the information that when we get your job. So that's why it's important that we have as much information as we can. It's not because we love to just store this information, it's so we can bespoke that to you. And just coming to Lizzie's point around a pilot that we're currently doing down in Swindon, and this is around looking at how we can optimise repairs operatives in the region to look at repairs in a specific area and do those quicker. So that does two things. One, it increases customer satisfaction because you're getting your repairs done quicker. But secondly, it reduces travel time for operatives, and we're able to really hone in on what's important in keeping that scheme or element of schemes where we've got multiple schemes, because around the country we do have that in some areas, where we can be more efficient around the repairing model. Very early indications, it's only been live for around 6 to 7 weeks, is satisfaction has improved, productivity has improved, so Daryl's happy. And we're just looking at how we might be able to scale that to do something different. And this isn't about just being able to report a whole host of repairs, because like Lizzie alluded to in a previous question, we have to always look at the spend. We've only got one pot of money, but it is about making sure that people aren't waiting too long for repairs and overlaying that with an element of efficiency as well.
Yeah, and I think in the pilot, and I'll tease to it and probably get into trouble, that they've also seen the ability for the on-site operative to be able to sort of say, is there anything else I can do while I'm here? And I think that's made a real difference. And for me, one of the things that we aspire to get to is ability to know who's behind the door, send the right person to support that customer, and then when they've done the thing they're there to do, they all say, is there anything else I can do while I'm here? And I think aspirationally, that's where we'd like to get to. So hopefully that answers all of the follow-up questions that you had for us. We're going to continue to do these events. They are quarterly with different members of the team, so you won't always see the three of us. But hopefully that's been helpful. Thank you for submitting the questions. Thank you for engaging with us. And thank you for listening.